I want you gone by lunch, Marcus said, leaning against my office doorframe with that insufferable smirk I'd endured since childhood. The board agrees, you're not executive material. I continued packing my belongings into a cardboard box, carefully wrapping the crystal paperweight that cost more than his car. Not that he'd recognize Baccarat when he saw it. Nothing to say, Sophie? No tears? No begging to keep your job? I glanced at my watch, Patek Philippe hidden under my sleeve. Actually, I do have something to say. Shouldn't you be preparing for the 2 p.m. board meeting? His smirk faltered slightly. What board meeting? The emergency session called this morning. Check your email. He pulled out his phone, his face darkening as he read the notification. This is ridiculous. I'm the zoo. I didn't call any meeting. No, I agreed mildly. You didn't. The truth was, while Marcus had spent the last 5 years playing CEO of Barrett Industries, I'd been quietly building something much bigger. Shadow Ridge Capital, my investment firm, had been acquiring Barrett shares through various shell companies, waiting for exactly this moment. My phone buzzed with a message from my CFO. All shares secured. We now control 80% of Barrett Industries. Ready to proceed with the revelation? What are you smiling about? Marcus demanded. You're the one being fired. I placed the last item in my box. A framed photo of our father on the day he founded Barrett Industries. Just thinking about how much can change in an afternoon. Nothing's changing except your employment status, he snapped. The board agrees you're too soft for this business. Always wanting to innovate and modernize, instead of sticking to what works. What works? Like the outdated manufacturing processes that were bleeding money. Like the resistant to change management style that had driven away our best talent. Like the nepotism that had put Marcus in charge simply because he was born first. The board meeting should be interesting, I remarked, checking my phone again. Especially the ownership disclosure portion. What ownership disclosure? I own 20% of Barrett Industries. Father left it to me. Yes, I nodded. You own 20%. Would you like to know who owns the other 80%? His face reddened. The shares are divided among the board members. Has been for decades. We're divided, I corrected. Until Shadow Ridge Capital started buying them. Quietly. Systematically. Until they owned a controlling interest. Marcus laughed, but there was an edge of uncertainty in it. Shadow Ridge? That giant investment firm that's been swallowing up companies across the country? What do they have to do with this? I picked up my box and walked to the door, pausing beside him. You'll find out at 2 p.m. Don't be late, brother dear. It would look bad for the CEO to miss his own demotion. Demotion? He grabbed my arm. What are you talking about? I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. Did you ever wonder why I never fought back? All these years of your condescension, your sabotage, your claims that little sister wasn't tough enough for business. His face had lost some of its color. You're bluffing. Trying to scare me. Check the shareholder registry, I suggested. It was updated this morning. He practically ran to his computer, fingers shaking as he logged in. I watched his face go from confident to confused to ashen as he scrolled through the ownership records. This is impossible, he whispered. Shadow Ridge owns everything? Almost everything, I corrected. You still have your 20%. For now. But who? He looked up at me, realization finally dawning. Oh, you can't be. Sophie Barrett, CEO of Shadow Ridge Capital, I said softly. Amazing what the little sister can accomplish while big brother is busy playing corporate tyrant. The office had gone quiet, other employees sensing the shift in power. Through the glass walls, I could see them trying not to stare as Marcus's world crumbled. The board meeting is in 3 hours, I reminded him. Just enough time for you to clean out your office. After all, I smiled, echoing his earlier words, you're not executive material. The Barrett Industries boardroom had always felt like a theater stage to me, with its dramatic floor-to-ceiling windows and imposing mahogany table. Today it would host its most dramatic performance yet. I arrived early, taking my usual seat at the far end, the spot Marcus had assigned me to know my place. My phone buzzed continuously with messages. From my CFO, all documentation prepared. Board members briefed individually. From legal, transition papers ready. Security standing by. From HR, new organizational chart approved. Waiting for your signal. Marcus burst in at 1:55 p.m., his perfectly tailored suit now looking rumpled, his usual swagger replaced by barely contained panic. "This is a mistake," he announced to the gathering board members. "There's been some kind of error in the shareholder registry." Howard Chin, our longest-serving board member, adjusted his glasses. "No error, Marcus. We've all received the official documentation from Shadow Ridge Capital. The ownership transfer is quite real." "But who are these people?" Marcus demanded. "How did they acquire so many shares without anyone noticing?" I smiled, remembering all the times he'd ignored my warnings about modernizing our shareholder tracking systems. "Perhaps if we'd updated our investment monitoring protocols like I suggested 3 years ago, you'd have seen this coming." The room filled quickly. Board members, legal representatives, even our father's old partners, all summoned for this moment. Each face showed a different shade of anticipation, everyone sensing the shift in power about to occur. At exactly 2 p.m. my assistant Emily entered. "Ms. Barrett, Shadow Ridge Capital's CEO, is ready to begin." Marcus whirled toward me. "What does she mean, Ms. Barrett? I'm the Barrett in charge here." "Are you?" I stood slowly, smoothing my Chanel suit, the one he'd mocked as trying too hard last week. "Check the screen behind you." The large display lit up with Shadow Ridge Capital's corporate profile. There, under Executive Leadership, was my photo. Sophie Barrett, founder and CEO. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Marcus staggered back, gripping the table for support. "Impossible," he whispered. You're my little sister. Your little sister who spent 5 years building a multi-billion-dollar investment firm while you were playing corporate dictator," I corrected. "The same sister you just fired for being too soft for business." Howard Chin cleared his throat. "Perhaps, Ms. Barrett, Sophie, you should explain for everyone's benefit." I pressed a button on my phone and the screen filled with data. Acquisition records, investment trails, corporate structures. The complete story of how I'd systematically gained control of our family company. While Marcus was busy protecting his position, I was building something bigger. Shadow Ridge Capital now controls over $50 billion in assets across multiple industries. Barrett Industries is just our latest acquisition. "Latest acquisition?" Marcus's voice cracked. "We're not for sale." "Actually," I smiled, "we were." Every time a board member wanted to retire, Shadow Ridge was there to buy their shares. Every time the stock price dipped, we bought more. Always through different subsidiaries, different names, until you owned us all, Howard finished, something like admiration in his voice. "But the money," Marcus protested. "The resources needed. Remember that silly little consulting business I started after college?" I asked. "The one you mocked for being small-time? It grew, invested, expanded. While you were having 3 martini lunches at the club, I was building an empire." My phone buzzed again. Security teams in position, ready to escort former CEO from premises. "Now," I continued, taking the CEO's seat at the head of the table, "let's discuss the future of Barrett Industries. Starting with its leadership." Marcus straightened, desperation replacing shock. "You can't fire me. I'm still a shareholder." "A minority shareholder," I corrected, "who just spent the morning bullying and firing the majority owner. Not your wisest move, brother." The board members shifted uncomfortably, many probably remembering times they'd supported Marcus's decisions against their better judgment. "However," I added, "I'm not you. I don't fire people for personal satisfaction. Instead, I'm offering you a choice." "What choice?" he asked warily. I slid a folder across the table. "Option 1. Sell your shares to Shadow Ridge at current market value and leave with a generous severance package. Option 2. Keep your shares, but take a position more suited to your actual abilities." "What position?" "Junior Operations Manager," I replied. "Where you'll learn how a modern company actually works, not just how to play CEO." The boardroom had gone silent, all eyes moving between us like spectators at a tennis match. "This is revenge," he accused. For all the times you undermined me, dismissed my ideas, treated me like an inconvenience." I stood up, commanding the room's attention. "No, Marcus. This isn't revenge. It's correction. A chance to learn what I had to learn. That real leadership isn't inherited, it's earned. The next morning's business headlines wrote themselves. Shadow Ridge Capital reveals ownership of Barrett Industries. CEO discovers his little sister is actually his boss. I sat in my real office, the entire top floor of Shadow Ridge Tower, watching the city wake up while messages flooded my phone. Board members, brilliant move. Always knew you had potential. Former executives, remember me? I always supported you. Industry peers, impressive strategy. Let's do lunch. And finally, Marcus, we need to talk. Emily entered with the morning briefings. Your brother is in the lobby, Miss Barrett. He's been there since dawn. I checked the security feed. Marcus looked different. His expensive suit wrinkled, his carefully styled hair disheveled, his usual arrogance replaced by something that might almost be humility. Send him up, I decided. And get me the employee handbook. He entered like a stranger, taking in my office with poorly concealed awe. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city's financial district, including the Barrett Industries building where he'd ruled until yesterday. Nice office, he managed. Bigger than mine. Was mine. Being the actual CEO has its perks, I replied, gesturing to a chair. Have you made your decision? He sat heavily, looking older than his 40 years. How long have you been planning this? Planning? No, Marcus. You planned this. Every time you dismissed my ideas, every time you undermined my authority, every time you treated me like an inconvenient little sister, you made this inevitable. But Shadow Ridge, it's massive. The resources required. Started small, I explained, pulling up my company's portfolio on the wall screen. One investment, then another. Reinvest, expand, repeat. While you were playing king in father's castle, I was building an empire. The screen filled with data, acquisitions, holdings, market positions. Shadow Ridge's true scope displayed in overwhelming detail. 50 billion in assets, he whispered. Over 30 companies. How did none of us know? You knew what you wanted to know. The board saw what they expected to see. Nobody looked deeper because nobody thought little Sophie could possibly be more than what you told them I was. My phone buzzed, Barrett Industries signage being updated. New letterhead and branding materials ready. So what happens now? He asked, watching the workers outside beginning to change the building's logo. To me? To Barrett Industries. That depends on you. I slid the employee handbook across my desk. Junior operations manager. Starting salary is exactly what you paid me 5 years ago. Ironic, isn't it? And if I refuse? Take the buyout. I pressed another button, and the screen changed to show Barrett Industries' true financial state. Look carefully, Marcus. The outdated systems you refused to upgrade. The talent you drove away. The innovations you rejected. Without Shadow Ridge's intervention, Barrett Industries would be bankrupt within 18 months. His face paled as he absorbed the numbers. I didn't know. No, you didn't. Because knowing would have meant admitting you were wrong. About the business, about modernization, about me. Emily's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Barrett, the transition team is ready to begin system upgrades. And the press is requesting a statement about the leadership change. Marcus looked up sharply. You're really going through with this? Demoting your own brother? Like you fired your own sister? I countered. The difference is I'm offering you a chance to learn. To earn your position instead of inheriting it. By starting at the bottom? By starting where you should have started, learning the business from the ground up. No shortcuts, no nepotism, no playing CEO without understanding what that really means. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city we'd both grown up in but seen so differently. Did you hate me? He finally asked. All these years. No, Marcus. I pitied you. You thought being born first made you entitled to lead. I knew better. Leadership isn't inherited, it's earned. Over the next year, Barrett Industries transformed under Shadow Ridge's guidance. The outdated systems were modernized, the toxic culture reformed, the innovation I'd always pushed for finally implemented. And Marcus? He learned. Slowly, painfully, but he learned. Starting in operations, he discovered what our employees really needed. Working in development, he saw the innovations he'd dismissed actually succeed. Step by step he earned the respect he'd always assumed was his birthright. 1 year later I called him to my office again. The city skyline had changed, Shadow Ridge's logo now prominent where Barrett's had once dominated. Your performance review is in, I began, opening his file. Exceptional. It seems you can learn after all. I did, he replied quietly. About business, about leadership, about family. Which is why, I continued, I'm offering you a promotion. Senior Operations Director. You'll have real responsibility now, but you've earned it. Thank you, he said, humility replacing his former arrogance. For everything. For taking your power? For teaching me its real value. Looking out at our city, truly ours now, perhaps, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. About power and earning, leadership and learning. The Barrett name still means something, I told him. But not because of inheritance. Because we've earned it. He understood then, this brother who had once thought birthright was enough, that true leadership can't be given. It must be earned. As the sun set over our city, casting long shadows across the buildings we now truly shared, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't taking someone's power. It's teaching them how to truly deserve it. 5 years later, at Barrett Industries' 50th anniversary celebration, Marcus and I stood together on the stage of our newly built conference center. The audience was filled with employees, both old and new, watching as we unveiled the company's new mission statement. Innovation through understanding, leadership through learning. Remember when I fired you? Marcus said quietly, adjusting his name badge that now read, Executive Vice President of Operations, a title he'd earned through real work and dedication. Remember when I bought the company? I smiled back. Best hostile takeover ever, he chuckled. You know, some of the old board members still talk about that day. They call it, the Barrett Revelation. Behind us, the screen displayed both our company's logos, Shadow Ridge Capital and Barrett Industries, now partnered rather than opposed. It was a symbol of how far we'd come, from siblings at war to true business partners. We built something better than what we inherited, I observed, watching our employees mingle and collaborate. No, Marcus corrected, you built something better. I just finally learned how to help. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all. The mahogany-paneled law office felt suffocating as Mr. Davidson, Grandpa's attorney for 40 years, prepared to read the will. My relatives perched on leather chairs like vultures, their designer outfits and jewelry competing for attention. Let's start with the major assets, Aunt Susan announced, already mentally spending her share. Her children, my cousins Mark and Jennifer, nodded eagerly. I sat quietly in the corner, still grieving the only person who'd ever truly believed in me. While they'd all been fighting over Grandpa's attention with fancy careers and material success, I'd spent every Sunday afternoon with him, listening to his stories about building his medical empire from nothing. Very well, Mr. Davidson adjusted his glasses. The Peterson Medical Center shares will be divided as follows. The next hour was a parade of assets being distributed. Aunt Susan received the Hamptons house, Uncle Robert got the yacht, and my cousins split the luxury car collection. Each announcement was met with satisfied smirks and calculating glances at their phones to check values. And finally, Mr. Davidson paused. To my grandson Daniel, I leave the contents of safety deposit box 247 at First National Bank. The room erupted in poorly concealed laughter. An empty box? Mark snickered. Sounds about right for the family disappointment. Jennifer twirled her Cartier bracelet. Well, Danny always was Grandpa's charity case. Remember when he chose to work at that free clinic instead of joining the hospital board? Now, Aunt Susan's voice dripped false sympathy. I'm sure there's something in that box. Maybe some old photos. She barely contained her smirk. Uncle Robert checked his Rolex. Can we wrap this up? I have a board meeting at 3. Mr. Davidson handed me a small golden key. The bank is across the street, Mr. Peterson. Would you like to check the contents now? Oh yes, Mark stood up. Let's all go see Danny's grand inheritance. I could use a good laugh before my yacht shopping appointment. I clutched the key, remembering Grandpa's last words to me. Sometimes the smallest key opens the biggest door, Danny. Remember everything I taught you about what really matters in medicine. The family paraded across the street to First National Bank, their Louis Vuitton shoes clicking on marble floors. The bank manager recognized Aunt Susan from charity galas and quickly ushered us to the vault. Box 247, he announced, sliding the metal container onto a private table. Moment of truth, Jennifer Stage whispered. Maybe it's filled with band-aids from his little clinic. I inserted the key, aware of the smartphones already raised to capture my disappointment. The lock clicked open. Well, Aunt Susan leaned forward. Show us this magnificent inheritance. Inside lay a single manila envelope, sealed with Grandpa's personal stamp. Mark immediately burst out laughing. An envelope. Even better than we thought. Maybe it's a bus pass to get to his charity work. I carefully broke the seal, my fingers steady despite their mocking. Grandpa had taught me that patience and precision were the most valuable traits in both medicine and life. Do tell us what words of wisdom the old man left you, Uncle Robert said, already turning to leave. Some of us have real business to attend to. I began reading the contents silently, my eyes widening with each line. The laughter around me slowly faded as they noticed my expression. What? Jennifer demanded. What could possibly be in that envelope? I looked up at my smugly successful relatives, Grandpa's voice echoing in my memory. The true value of medicine isn't in fancy hospital wings or charity galas. It's in who controls the power to heal. Well, Aunt Susan snapped. Don't keep us in suspense about your precious envelope. I carefully laid out the documents on the table, watching their faces as understanding slowly dawned. The papers were ownership deeds, contracts, and shares, but not just any shares. Mr. Davidson, who had followed us to the bank, cleared his throat. Perhaps I should explain the full implications of these documents. These documents, Mr. Davidson began, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years of legal expertise, represent controlling interest in Peterson Medical Holdings, the parent company of every major hospital, clinic, and medical research facility in the metropolitan area. Aunt Susan grabbed the edge of the table, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the wood. That's impossible. The board controls those shares. No, I said quietly, laying out each document methodically. Grandpa controlled those shares through a complex series of holding companies. Companies that, according to these papers, now belong to me. Mark's face had lost its smug expression. But the hospital board, Dad's position, was always at the pleasure of the majority shareholder, Mr. Davidson explained. Your grandfather maintained public ownership of only 10% of the company. The remaining controlling interest was held through these private entities. Jennifer's phone slipped from her trembling fingers. The Peterson Medical Center is just one part of it, I continued, finding my voice growing stronger. The research facilities, the pharmaceutical development division, the specialized clinics, the medical school. I spread out more papers. I own controlling interest in all of them. Uncle Robert lunged forward, grabbing one of the documents. This can't be legal. I'm on the board. We would have known. Actually, Mr. Davidson pulled out his tablet. If you check the latest SEC filings, you'll see the ownership transfer was processed at 9 a.m. this morning. It's all perfectly legal and binding. The bank manager, who had been watching with professional restraint, suddenly straightened. Sir, shall I arrange for the executive banking team to meet with you? That won't be necessary just yet, I replied, remembering Grandpa's lessons about maintaining composure in crucial moments. Aunt Susan had found her voice, though it quivered with barely contained rage. But why you? You work at that worthless free clinic. You've never shown any business acumen. I turned to her slowly. You mean the free clinic where I've been implementing an innovative healthcare delivery system that reduces costs by 60% while improving patient outcomes? The model that the National Health Institute just recommended for nationwide adoption. What? Mark whispered. Or perhaps you meant the worthless research I've been conducting there on accessible healthcare solutions. The same research that just received a $500 million grant from the Gates Foundation. Jennifer had sunk into a chair, her designer dress crumpling. But you never came to the board meetings. Because I was busy learning medicine from the ground up, just like Grandpa did. While you were all fighting over hospital wings named after yourselves, I was learning every aspect of healthcare delivery, from janitor to surgeon. Mr. Davidson nodded approvingly. Your grandfather was quite impressed with your holistic approach to understanding the healthcare system. He said you reminded him of himself at your age. But the company value. Uncle Robert was frantically calculating on his phone. These holdings, they're worth $12.4 billion as of this morning's market evaluation, I supplied. Though with the implementation of my new healthcare delivery system and the pending patents from my research, analysts project that to double within 18 months. The bank manager cleared his throat. Sir, there are also several sealed envelopes in the box containing what appear to be resignation letters. Ah yes, I picked them up. Pre-signed resignations from every board member, to be activated at my discretion. Grandpa was nothing if not thorough. Aunt Susan swayed slightly. The annual charity gala next week. I'm the chairwoman. Was the chairwoman, I corrected gently. I'll be announcing a new direction for our charitable initiatives. One that focuses on actually helping people rather than social prestige. Mark's face had turned an alarming shade of pale. The hospital expansion project I'm managing is cancelled, I confirmed. Those resources will be redirected to upgrading our community clinics and research facilities. Jennifer made a small choking sound. But, what about the family legacy? I gathered the documents carefully, remembering Grandpa's words about responsibility and purpose. The legacy will be stronger than ever. It's just returning to its original mission, healing people, not enriching shareholders. The bank manager stepped forward. Sir, your grandfather left one more item. He produced a small box from inside the safety deposit box. Inside was Grandpa's old stethoscope, the one he'd used when he opened his first clinic 50 years ago. Attached was a note. Remember, Danny, hear the heart before you count the money. I looked up at my shell-shocked relatives, their world of privilege and pretense crumbling around them. Mr. Davidson, I believe we have some paperwork to complete. And then I have patients to see at the clinic. 3 months after the will reading, I sat in what used to be Uncle Robert's office, now transformed into a modern command center for our healthcare revolution. Gone were the ostentatious oil paintings and mahogany furniture, replaced by interactive medical displays and real-time patient care metrics. A gentle knock interrupted my review of the latest community health initiative. Dr. Peterson, your family is here for the quarterly shareholders meeting. Thank you, Sarah. Let's not keep them waiting. They filed into the conference room like chastened children, a far cry from their previous imperious attitudes. Aunt Susan's designer suit seemed somehow muted, Mark's confidence had deflated to near invisibility, and Jennifer's social media influence had taken a dramatic turn from luxury hospital heiress to unfollowed. Before we begin, I announced, activating the holographic display, let's review our first quarter under new management. The numbers floated in the air. Patient satisfaction up 78%. Treatment costs down 45%. Research grant funding increased by $890 million. Staff turnover reduced by 82%. As you can see, I continued, our shift from profit-centered to patient-centered care has yielded remarkable results. Uncle Robert shifted uncomfortably. But the profit margins have increased by 32%. I completed his sentence. Turns out, treating patients effectively and efficiently is actually good for business. Who you? Aunt Susan cleared her throat. About the annual gala. Has been replaced by community health fairs, I said firmly. The $2 million we used to spend on caviar and champagne now funds preventive care programs in underserved neighborhoods. But the social connections, Jennifer protested weakly, are stronger than ever. The Gates Foundation, WHO, and CDC have all partnered with us for global health initiatives. Last week, I had dinner with Dr. Fauci to discuss our pandemic preparedness protocols. Mark flipped frantically through the quarterly report. The new board members are actually medical professionals, I nodded. Shocking concept, I know. Dr. Chin from Johns Hopkins, Dr. Patel from Mayo Clinic, and Dr. Rodriguez from Stanford. People who understand both medicine and management. The holographic display shifted to show our new organizational structure. The hierarchy was flatter, more efficient, with direct lines of communication between medical staff and administration. You'll notice, I continued, that our administrative costs have dropped by 60% since removing redundant executive positions. I paused meaningfully, including those previously held by family members. Aunt Susan dabbed at her eyes with a significantly less expensive handkerchief than she used to carry. The country club membership has been terminated. We've converted the hospital's private golf course into a rehabilitation center and community garden. The patients seem to prefer growing their own food to watching executives play golf. But the hospital's reputation, Uncle Robert began, has never been better, I interrupted, pulling up the latest headlines. Peterson Medical Revolution. How Patient-First Care Changed Healthcare. Free clinic model goes global. Who adopts Peterson protocol? Healthcare hero. Young Seo transforms billion-dollar empire into public health pioneer. 3 months after the will reading, I sat in Uncle Robert's old office. It was now a modern center for healthcare reform. The fancy paintings and furniture were gone. Only Grandpa's old stethoscope hung on the wall. Dr. Peterson, your family is here for the shareholder meeting, said my assistant Sarah. Tell the WHO director I'll call back in an hour. Let's start with family. They walked in like kids in trouble. Aunt Susan's suit was less flashy. Mark looked nervous. Jennifer's social media fame had faded. Uncle Robert sat quietly among the minority shareholders. Let's review the first quarter, I said, showing data in holograms. Patient satisfaction up 78%. Treatment costs down 45%. Research funding up $890 million. Staff turnover down 82%. Emergency response times improved 40%. Community health better everywhere. Our patient-focused care works, I said. It's now a global model. Uncle Robert frowned. What about profits? They've grown 32%, I said. Good care is good business. Our stock doubled. Mark muttered. You cut premium services. No, I said. Premium care is for everyone now. The executive floor? Pediatric care. Private suites. Family rooms. Aunt Susan asked about the gala. It's gone. We fund health fairs now. Last fair helped 5,000 people and found 200 early illnesses. Jennifer complained about social connections. They're stronger than ever, I said. We work with Gates Foundation, WHO, CDC. I met with Dr. Fauci and will meet the UN Secretary General soon. Mark looked at the board changes. They're medical experts now, I said. Doctors and health advocates run the company, not executives. Admin costs dropped 60%. Family exec roles are gone. Aunt Susan cried over the country club membership. It's ended. The golf course is now a rehab and garden. Uncle Robert worried about reputation. It's better than ever, I said, showing headlines praising our work. Sarah gave more news. You're nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Time wants you for Person of the Year. Jennifer dropped her purse, stunned. Nobel Prize. For making healthcare accessible, I said. Our local clinics cut ER visits by 60%. Preventive care works. Mark asked about pharma. We shifted to cures, not just maintenance drugs. We've made breakthroughs in rare diseases. Uncle Robert asked about shareholders. They're happy. Our stock beats all others. Aunt Susan whispered about family legacy. It's exactly what Grandpa wanted, I said, touching his stethoscope. He built this to heal people, not fund luxury. The room fell silent. I stood up. Excuse me, I have patients to see. Sarah will show you the new pediatric wing built with saved bonus money. As they left, Jennifer paused by patient thank you letters. Danny, she said softly, using my childhood name, Grandpa would be proud. I smiled. He would. But not of me, of what the hospital became. Sunlight filled the hospital. Patients walked in the healing garden. Doctors worked efficiently without extra bureaucracy. Researchers made new treatments without profit pressure. People were healed because of need, not wealth. Grandpa's stethoscope caught the light. A reminder that small keys can open big doors, especially ones leading to real change. The annual Williams family dinner, an event I dreaded for the past 5 years. Every year, the same mahogany dining table, the same judgmental stares, and the same question. When are you going to get a real job, Emily? I adjusted my simple black dress as I walked into Morton's Steakhouse's private dining room. Dad had been having his success dinners here for 20 years, ever since he became Senior VP at Global Dynamics Corporation. The maitre d' nodded in recognition, not because I was William Williams' daughter, but because I owned the restaurant chain. Not that my family knew that detail yet. Emily, darling. Mom's voice carried that familiar note of forced cheerfulness. We were just discussing Jennifer's promotion. Of course they were. My younger sister Jennifer, the golden child who followed Dad's footsteps into Global Dynamics. She sat there preening in her designer suit, engagement ring catching the light, everything about her screaming corporate success. Sorry I'm late, I said, taking my seat. Business meeting ran long. Dad scoffed. Business meeting? Is that what you call those little internet projects of yours now? The waiter approached with wine and I noticed his slight smile. He knew who I was, the owner of not just Morton's but half the luxury restaurant groups in the country. Another detail my family would discover soon enough. Actually, Dad, I was in a board meeting. Board meeting? Jennifer laughed. For what? Your online startup. Mom jumped in, ever the peacekeeper. Now, Jennifer, I'm sure Emily's projects are very interesting. Though, darling, she turned to me, Mrs. Henderson's daughter is hiring at her law firm if you'd like a real career opportunity. I took a slow sip of wine, a vintage from my own vineyard in Napa. I'm good, Mom. Good. Dad's voice rose slightly. You're 32 years old, living in that small apartment, driving a basic car. That's not good, that's settling. If only they knew that small apartment was actually the entire top floor of the building. And that basic car was a custom-made electric vehicle from my own automotive company. William, my father's colleague James Porter, joined us. Did you hear about the big announcement tomorrow? Rumor has it we're getting a new CEO. Dad straightened his tie. About time. Ever since old man Phillips retired, the board's been dragging their feet. I've been running my division practically solo. Any idea who it might be? James asked. Has to be internal, Dad declared confidently. I'm actually meeting with the board tomorrow. 15 years as senior VP, it's about time they recognized my contributions. Jennifer beamed. Does this mean you're up for CEO, Daddy? Well, nothing's certain, but... He puffed up slightly. Let's just say I've been preparing for this opportunity. The waiter returned with appetizers. Compliments of the house, he said, giving me a knowing look. How thoughtful, Mom smiled. William must be a very valued customer. Actually, the waiter began, but I caught his eye and shook my head slightly. Not yet. Dad turned back to me. See, Emily? This is what success looks like. Your sister's climbing the corporate ladder, I'm up for CEO, and what are you doing? Playing with computers. I checked my phone, 3 messages from my executive team. The press release was ready. The board votes were confirmed. Everything was in place. I'm running a company, Dad. Ha. He actually laughed. That little website business of yours? That's not a real company. Global Dynamics. That's a real company. 100 billion in revenue, offices worldwide, that's success. Jennifer chimed in. Daddy's right. It's time to grow up. I could probably get you an entry-level position in my department. That's very kind of you, I replied, my voice steady. But I'm good where I am. Where you are, Dad's voice dripped with disappointment, is nowhere. Can't even get a real job. Your sister's getting married to a senior executive about to make VP herself, and you're what? A wannabe entrepreneur. Just then his phone rang. He glanced at it, the board's number. Excuse me, this is important, he said, standing. Yes, this is William Williams. Sir, the new CEO wants to... Well, but it's my family dinner. Yes, sir, I understand. The color drained from his face as he listened. Emily, he said slowly, lowering the phone. Why is the board asking me to report to conference room A right now? To meet you. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Because, Dad, that little website business of mine? It's called Phoenix Technologies. We just acquired Global Dynamics. The board voted an hour ago. The silence that fell over the table was absolute. Jennifer's fork clattered against her plate. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. That's impossible, Dad whispered. Phoenix Technologies is a multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerate. They're the ones who've been buying up companies worldwide. They're mine, I finished for him. I founded it 6 years ago, right after you told me I was wasting my time with computer games. We're worth $218 billion now. And yes, we just bought Global Dynamics. The press release goes out at midnight. The waiter reappeared, this time with a different demeanor. Ms. Williams, your executive team has arrived. They're waiting in the private lounge. James Porter had gone pale. You're the Phoenix CEO? The one they call the Shadow Queen, because no one knows who owns the company. Was a secret, I corrected. Until now. Dad's phone was still in his hand, board members waiting on the line. His dreams of becoming CEO had just shattered, because his useless daughter already owned the entire company. But this was just the beginning. The real shock would come when they learned exactly what else I owned. The private lounge at Morton's had transformed into an impromptu board meeting. Through the glass walls, I could see my family still sitting at the dining table, shell-shocked. Jennifer hadn't touched her $200 Wagyu steak, a cut I'd personally added to the menu last year. Ms. Williams, my CFO Michael, approached with a tablet. The acquisition documents are ready. Would you like your father to sign them now or at the office tomorrow? Dad, who had been summoned to the lounge, stared at the papers in disbelief. These show Phoenix owns 87% of Global Dynamics. Actually, I swiped through the tablet, we own 100% as of 10 minutes ago. The remaining shares were just purchased through subsidiary companies. I turned to Michael. How's the stock responding? Up 47% on rumors of the acquisition. Tomorrow's announcement should push it past 80%. Jennifer had followed us into the lounge, her designer heels clicking on marble floors I'd had installed during last month's renovation. But you live in that tiny apartment. You mean the penthouse? I smiled. The one that takes up the top 3 floors of the Williams Tower. I paused, enjoying her confusion. Oh right, you probably didn't know I bought that building too. Along with most of the downtown real estate portfolio. Mom appeared at the door, her perfect composure cracking. Emily, darling, why didn't you tell us? Tell you. I pulled up a video on the lounge's wall screens. Like when I tried to tell you about my first company at Christmas 4 years ago. Let's watch that moment again. The security footage played clearly our family Christmas dinner, where I'd attempted to share my success. Dad's dismissive laugh. Mom's patronizing smile. Jennifer's snide remarks about playing businesswoman. That company? I pointed to the screen. It sold for $4.2 billion 6 months later. But you were all too busy discussing Jennifer's promotion to junior manager to notice. Dad sank into a leather chair, his face ashen. The board meeting tomorrow has been moved up to right now, I confirmed. Global Dynamics is being restructured, starting with senior management. Jennifer stepped forward, her confidence returning slightly. Surely you won't fire your own father. No, I agreed. Dad keeps his job, but not his title. I turned to my father. You'll be reporting to Division Manager Chong starting Monday. Your office is being relocated to the 3rd floor. The 3rd. He couldn't even finish the sentence. He was losing his corner office on the 50th floor, the office he'd bragged about for 15 years. Don't worry, Dad. Your salary remains the same. Consider it daughter's privilege. The screens switched to live feeds from Global Dynamics offices worldwide, all now part of Phoenix's empire. My empire. Ms. Williams, another executive, entered. The Gates Foundation is on the line about the AI healthcare initiative. Bill Gates. Jennifer squeaked. No, I replied, echoing her years of condescension. Melinda. We're collaborating on revolutionizing global healthcare access. I took the call on speaker. Melinda, yes, everything's proceeding as planned. The neural interface trials were successful. Yes, I can fly to Seattle tomorrow. Mom clutched her pearls, the fake ones she wore to impress her social circle. You know Melinda Gates? Know her? Emily's her daughter's godmother, Michael commented, not looking up from his tablet. The tech world's most powerful women all vacation together at Ms. Williams' private island. Private island? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. The one you mocked as a waste of money when I mentioned buying it last year. I reminded him. That you probably thought I was joking. Just like you thought my little computer games were a joke. The waiter appeared again. Ms. Williams, the Prime Minister's office is calling about the quantum computing facility. Jennifer's fiancé, a mid-level executive at Global Dynamics, had finally joined us, his face pale. Quantum computing? But that's classified government. Welcome to Phoenix Technologies, I cut him off. Where those little internet projects Dad mocked are actually revolutionizing global technology. Speaking of, I turned to Michael. How's our space division performing? The lunar base construction is ahead of schedule. NASA wants to move up the Mars colony timeline. Dad's legs gave out completely and he slumped deeper into the chair. His daughter, the one he'd dismissed as useless, was building colonies on Mars. But the real shock was still to come. Because tomorrow's press release wouldn't just announce Phoenix's acquisition of Global Dynamics. It would reveal everything else I owned, including, "Sir," the waiter addressed my father. "Will you be keeping your standing dinner reservation here at Morton's?" "Of course," Dad replied automatically. "I've been coming here for 20 years. You'll need to check with the owner," the waiter smiled. "Though I'm sure Ms. Williams will let you keep your table." And that's when it finally hit him, his favorite restaurant, his standing reservation, his special table, all belonged to his useless daughter. The night wasn't over yet. As if orchestrated by fate, the private lounge's TV automatically tuned to the evening news. The headlines scrolling across the bottom made my family freeze. Breaking. Phoenix Technologies CEO identity revealed. Emily Williams, 32, named world's youngest female trillionaire. Trillionaire? Jennifer stammered, her engagement ring suddenly looking very small. The official announcement wasn't supposed to be until midnight, I sighed, looking at Michael. Forbes jumped the gun, he apologized. They're running a special edition. You're on the cover. The magazine was already being displayed on every screen in the lounge. There I was, photographed in my real office, a sprawling penthouse suite atop the Phoenix headquarters. The headline read, "The Silent Queen, How Emily Williams Built a $1 trillion Empire While Her Family Thought She Was Failing." "Your net worth," Dad said, finding his voice, "is more than the GDP of most countries?" "Actually," Michael interjected, checking his tablet, "with today's stock surge, Ms. Williams' personal worth exceeds the combined GDP of 157 nations." Mom had to sit down. But at Christmas you said you couldn't afford a new car." "No, Mom. I said I didn't want a new car. The basic car I drive? It's a prototype from Phoenix's automotive division. Worth about $4.7 million. We're releasing it next year. It can fly." "Fly?" Jennifer's fiancé squeaked. "Among other things," I smiled. "That little internet project Dad mocked last Thanksgiving? It was the AI system that runs the car. The one that just got approved by every major government worldwide." My phone buzzed. The president was calling. Not the company president. The president. "Yes, Madam President. The quantum defense system is online. Yes, the AI integration is complete. No, the Chinese haven't figured it out yet." Dad's face went through a series of emotions as he realized his unemployed daughter was casually discussing national security with the President of the United States. "Emily," Mom tried again, her voice small, "why keep all this secret? Why let us think that I was a failure?" I finished for her. "Because you never asked. You never listened. When I tried to tell you about my first patent, you were too busy planning Jennifer's office shower. When I attempted to discuss my AI breakthroughs, Dad was too focused on his own promotion." The screen switched to live feeds of Phoenix facilities worldwide, quantum computing centers, AI research labs, aerospace facilities, and yes, that lunar base Michael mentioned. "Ms. Williams," my assistant entered. "The Space Force General is waiting to discuss the Mars defense grid." Jennifer's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. "Mars defense." "Oh yes," I nodded. "Those computer games Dad laughed at? They're protecting our Mars colonies now." Speaking of protection, I turned to Michael. "How's our military contract performing?" "The Pentagon just doubled the order. They're calling your AI system the biggest advancement in military technology since nuclear weapons." Dad's tie suddenly seemed too tight. My daughter controls everything," I finished. "Those government contracts you were so proud of at Global Dynamics? They're all through Phoenix now. In fact," I pulled up another document, Global Dynamics has been surviving on contracts I threw your way for the past 2 years. I was keeping you afloat until I could complete the acquisition. Mom's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. You were saving your father's company? While he was mocking my career choices, yes. I stood up, walking to the window overlooking the city. See that skyline? Phoenix owns 40% of those buildings. The rest. I smiled. We'll own them by next quarter. Jennifer, trying to salvage something, spoke up. But I'm still VP of Marketing. We're VP of Marketing, I corrected gently. Global Dynamics Marketing Division is being absorbed into Phoenix's operations. But don't worry, I'm not firing you. You're being reassigned. To where? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Our Antarctic research station. I hear it's lovely this time of year. Dad finally stood up, his legs shaky. Emily. We never knew. Exactly, Dad. You never knew because you never cared to know. Every achievement, every success, every breakthrough, you were too busy with your own small victories to notice I was changing the world. The screens now showed Phoenix's stock price soaring as news of the acquisition spread. Global Dynamics, Dad's precious company, was now just a tiny subsidiary in my corporate empire. Oh, and Dad, I added, watching him flinch. That corner office you're so proud of? I'm turning it into a janitor's closet. Symbolism, you understand. The final blow came when my secretary entered with a stack of magazines: Time, Forbes, Fortune, Business Week. My face was on every cover with headlines like, "The Future is Female," "Emily Williams' $1 Trillion Revolution," and "How One Woman Secretly Built the World's Largest Company." Your father's standing reservation at Morton's, Michael reminded me. Should we keep it? I pretended to consider. Well, since I own the restaurant, and the building, and the entire restaurant group, I suppose we can let him keep his table. Family privilege. As my executive team prepared to leave, I turned to my stunned family one last time. Next family dinner will be at my place. You know that small apartment you mocked? The one that takes up 3 floors of the city's tallest building? The building that, by the way, used to be called Global Dynamics Tower. The wedding invitation arrived in an envelope thick enough to double as armor, addressed to Miss Alexandra Chin and guest. The gold-embossed lettering practically dripped with Victoria's signature condescension. The Crystal Palace, I murmured, running my fingers over the venue's name. My company had quietly acquired it 3 months ago, along with half the luxury properties in the city. Not that my family had noticed. They were too busy planning Victoria's wedding of the century. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Vicky needs help with parking arrangements. Perfect for you since you're not busy with that little real estate thing." That little real estate thing was Chin Global Properties, now the largest luxury venue operator on the East Coast. But they still saw me as the quiet daughter who'd skipped law school to play with buildings. Another text from Victoria. "Darling, weddings at 4. Come at 1 to help coordinate valet parking. You know, something manageable for you." I glanced at the morning's acquisition reports. The Crystal Palace's value had tripled under our management. The renovation plans on my desk would transform it into the city's premier event venue. "Tell the board I'll be late," I informed my assistant. "Family obligation." The Tokyo investors call. Reschedule. My sister needs help parking cars. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria, the brilliant lawyer, planning her society wedding in a building I owned. Having her unsuccessful sister manage the parking at a venue that generated more monthly revenue than her firm's annual billings. Mom called. "Alexandra, darling, you'll help, won't you? Vicky's so stressed about making everything perfect." "Of course," I replied, signing off on another $1 million renovation. Wouldn't want to disappoint my successful sister. The Crystal Palace's manager had been texting nervously all morning. "Miss Chin, should we inform your family?" "No," I responded. "Let's keep this our little secret. For now." Victoria's final text arrived as I gathered my things. "Wear something appropriate for parking duty. And try not to embarrass me. This is my special day." I smiled, tucking the venue's ownership papers into my bag. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's valet parked. I slipped into my appropriate outfit, a tailored Chanel suit that cost more than Victoria's law school tuition. The little real estate thing, had its perks, even if my family remained willfully blind to them. My phone lit up with a calendar alert. Crystal Palace Executive Review, 2 p.m. Right in the middle of my parking duty. Perfect. Your sister's wedding planner is calling again, my assistant notified me. She's panicking about the last-minute venue changes you approved. The gold leaf on the grand staircase? I smiled. Consider it my wedding gift. Mom's voice filled my car's speakers through another call. Alexandra, please don't be late. And do something with your hair. The valet staff needs to look presentable. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror of my Bentley. The same model Victoria's fiancé had bragged about ordering, not knowing I had 3. The irony of parking cars worth more than their combined salaries wasn't lost on me. The Crystal Palace loomed ahead, its newly renovated facade gleaming in the morning sun. My renovation team had worked miracles, transforming the tired venue into a masterpiece. Victoria had gushed about the changes, never questioning who was behind them. The contractors need final approval on the fountain installation, my assistant chimed in. Tell them to proceed, I replied, pulling into my private parking space, the one Victoria's planner had tried to reserve for the bride. Let's make sure my sister's special day really shines. As I stepped out, the venue manager rushed forward, panic in his eyes. Miss Chin, your family is already here and your sister is asking about the owner's suite. Give it to her, I winked. After all, it's her special day. The manager's face twitched with suppressed amusement. We both knew whose name was on the deed to that suite, and every other square inch of the building. Time to park some cars. The Crystal Palace's grand entrance was a flurry of activity as I arrived. Wedding planners scurried about with clipboards, florists arranged $1,000 bouquets, and Victoria stood in the center of it all, directing her troops like a general going to war. Finally, she exclaimed, spotting me. The valet team is short-staffed. You'll need to actually park cars, not just coordinate. Of course, I replied, watching a contractor discreetly motion for my approval on the new crystal chandelier installation, my latest $1 million wedding gift, that Victoria assumed came with the venue. Mom swooped in, designer dress rustling. Alexandra, darling, your hair. Well, at least you're on time. The parking situation is crucial. Victoria's fiancé's law partners are attending. The same partners who rejected my development proposal last year? I asked innocently, signing off on another venue upgrade behind my sister's back. They know real estate, dear. Mom patted my arm. They could tell it wasn't viable. Those experts had called my luxury venue concept unrealistic. Now they were about to attend a wedding in one of my properties, completely unaware that their rejection had motivated me to build my empire without their help. The owner's suite is perfect. Victoria gushed, returning from her inspection. Though I don't know why they upgraded everything just before my wedding. Lucky timing, I murmured, catching the manager's suppressed smile. My phone buzzed. The Tokyo investors were confirming our latest acquisition, another landmark property in Victoria's preferred neighborhood. Soon, her dream apartment building would join my portfolio. Alexandra, the cars are arriving. Victoria's voice snapped with authority. Try not to scratch anything expensive. Jeffrey's colleagues drive Mercedes. I'll be careful, I promised, thinking of my private car collection that could buy her fiancé's entire law firm. The first wave of guests arrived and I played my part perfectly. Each luxury car I parked was worth less than my daily property revenue, but Victoria beamed with satisfaction seeing her struggling sister doing something manageable. Your sister's good at this, I overheard one of Jeffrey's partners tell Victoria. Maybe we could use her at the firm's events. She needs the experience, Victoria agreed magnanimously. Her real estate dreams haven't quite materialized. Just then my assistant texted, Tokyo transfer complete. You now own 60% of luxury venues in the city. The irony was delicious. While they pitted my career choices, I was literally giving them space to do so, in my own building. The valet parking is so organized, Victoria's maid of honor commented. Your sister's finally found her calling. Mom nodded proudly. We always knew she'd find something suitable. Not everyone can be a successful lawyer like Victoria. I handed another set of keys to my staff, actual valet professionals who knew exactly who signed their generous paychecks. They played along perfectly, treating me like any other temporary worker. Miss Chen, the venue manager whispered during a quiet moment, the board needs your approval on the new property acquisition. Which one? I asked, straightening my valet-appropriate designer suit. The Harrison Building. The one your sister's firm is trying to lease for their expansion. I smiled, remembering Victoria's boast about her firm's upcoming move to the city's most exclusive address. Tell them to proceed, I decided, and increase the proposed lease rates by 10%. Another wave of guests arrived and I returned to my assigned role. Victoria's big day was unfolding perfectly in my venue, under my chandeliers, surrounded by my renovations. The owner must be doing well, I heard Jeffrey tell Victoria. These upgrades must have cost millions. Whoever owns this place clearly knows what they're doing, Victoria agreed, watching me park another car. Unlike some people who waste time on unrealistic business plans. The afternoon sun streamed through the newly installed stained glass windows. Another coincidental upgrade I'd ordered just for Victoria's special day. Each ray of light caught the gold leaf detailing I'd added to the moldings, creating the exact ethereal effect my sister had dreamed of but thought impossible to achieve. The venue's transformation is remarkable, Jeffrey's senior partner mused, handing me his Ferrari keys. We should have invested when that mysterious buyer made the initial offer. Timing is everything, I replied, carefully parking his car next to my collection of luxury vehicles in the private garage. My phone buzzed again. The Tokyo Stock Exchange was opening, and Chin Global Properties shares were soaring. Another text from my assistant. The Harrison Building sellers accepted your terms. You now own your sister's future office space. Victoria's voice carried across the parking area. Alexandra, dear, try to hurry with the cars. The ceremony starts in 2 hours and you still need to change into your bridesmaid dress. The dress she'd chosen was intentionally unflattering, pale yellow, 2 sizes too large. To complement your coloring, she'd said sweetly. What she didn't know was that I'd had Vera Wong personally redesign it, transforming the monstrosity into an elegant creation. Your sister's so good with the guests' cars, Victoria's future mother-in-law commented. Perhaps she could work at Jeffrey's firm's events permanently? We've been trying to guide her towards suitable employment, Mom sighed. After that unfortunate real estate venture failed. The unfortunate venture that now controlled most of the city's premium properties. The same venture that had just acquired their country club last week. Not that they'd received the announcement yet. The venue manager approached again, masterfully playing his role. The owner asked about the fountain timing for the ceremony. Perfect synchronization with the bride's entrance, I instructed, watching Victoria practice her walk on my recently imported Italian marble. Speaking of the owner, Jeffrey's voice drifted over. I hear they're quite the business genius. Built an empire practically overnight. Victoria laughed, adjusting her veil in the antique mirrors I'd sourced from Venice. Probably some old money family. Alexandra tried something similar, you know. Barely managed to secure a single property. If only they knew that single property had been this very building, the cornerstone of my now sprawling empire. Cars are backing up. Victoria called out. Alexandra, focus please. This isn't one of your real estate dreams. It was better. It was reality, my reality built while they were busy underestimating me. And soon, very soon, they'd all realize just whose building they were standing in. With 1 hour until the ceremony, Victoria's perfectly planned wedding was running like clockwork, in my perfectly renovated venue. I'd just handed off the last guest's keys when Jeffrey's father, a prominent real estate mogul, arrived in his Rolls-Royce. I must meet the owner, he announced to Victoria. These renovations are extraordinary. The marble work alone must have cost millions. The owner's quite private, Victoria assured him, shooting me a warning look as I approached. Alexandra, finish with the cars before you change. And please use the staff entrance. Actually, the venue manager intervened right on cue. The owner's here for the final ceremony inspection. Victoria's face lit up. Perfect. Daddy, you can discuss investment opportunities. Where are they? Jeffrey's father asked eagerly, straightening his tie. The manager smiled, gesturing toward me. You've been speaking with her all afternoon. The silence that followed was worth every minute I'd spent parking cars. That's impossible, Victoria laughed sharply. Alexandra's just helping with parking. She couldn't even secure funding for her first property. That first property, I finally spoke, pulling the venue's documents from my Hermes bag, was the Crystal Palace. Everything you've been admiring, the chandeliers, the marble, the gold leaf, those were my unrealistic renovations. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, caught smoothly by one of my staff members. But your real estate venture failed, she stammered. No, I corrected gently. You just assumed it did because I stopped discussing it with the family. Chin Global Properties now owns most of the luxury venues in the city. Including, I added with a slight smile, the building your firm is planning to lease, Victoria. Jeffrey's father stepped forward, eyes wide with recognition. You're Alexandra Chin? The Alexandra Chin who outbid us on the Harrison building last week. Victoria's perfect posture crumpled slightly. The Harrison building? Our new office space. Your future landlord, I confirmed. Don't worry, I'll give you the family discount. Only 10% above market rate. Why didn't you tell us? Mom whispered. I tried. Remember my first proposal? The one Victoria's law partners dismissed as unrealistic? The one you suggested I abandon for something more suitable? Jeffrey's father was already on his phone, frantically checking property records. By God. The Wellington Hotel, the Grand Plaza, the Meridian Complex. You own them all. Along with the country club, I added. That acquisition finalizes next week. Victoria's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. You let me treat you like staff. At your own venue. I let you have your perfect day, I corrected. Every upgrade you loved. My wedding gift to you. Every detail you praised. My team's work. That owner's suite you've been using. My office. The venue manager approached with a tablet. Miss Chin, Tokyo's calling about the new acquisitions. I should take this, I said, turning to my stunned family. Victoria, the ceremony starts in 40 minutes. The fountain will coordinate perfectly with your entrance, and yes, those are real gold flakes in the water feature. Consider it another wedding gift from your unsuccessful sister. Victoria found me in the owner's suite as I finished my Tokyo call. Her perfect wedding dress rustled against the Italian leather furniture she'd admired earlier. Why didn't you just tell me? She asked, sinking into a chair. All this time while I was being condescending? Treating me like your personal valet? I smiled, signing off on another property acquisition. Would you have believed me? She touched the marble desk, my desk, tracing the veining with a manicured finger. The renovations, the upgrades, everything I wanted. I know my sister, I shrugged. Even when she's belittling my career choices. Tears threatened her carefully applied mascara. I've been horrible to you. You've been Victoria, I corrected, checking the ceremony timeline. But right now you're also a bride who's getting married in 10 minutes. The fountain is timed, the lights are perfect, and yes, I added those crystal butterflies you mentioned wanting last week. She stood, smoothing her dress. How do you not hate me? Because success isn't about proving others wrong, I said, adjusting her veil. It's about proving yourself right. Now shall we get you married? I hear the venue is quite exclusive. For the first time in years, Victoria laughed. Really laughed. My sister, the real estate mogul. Your sister, the valet parker. I winked. Now come on. Your wedding awaits.